Hello everybody, Mark here, and today is going to be the third part of my talk of when I had chickens. If you haven't seen the first parts, 1 and 2, the first one is acquiring and housing. Part 2 was healthcare, what to look out with health problems and how to deal with them. And today, part 3, I'm going to be talking about how to feed your chickens, what to feed them, how to feed them, and really how to do it very cheaply. You know, there are lots of ways where you can subsidize their food, and I used to pride myself on the variety of food that my chickens had, and everybody who visited the place, they always had complimentary things to say about the variety of foods and how well the chickens ate. And it can be done very cheaply. I've made a bunch of notes here, so hopefully I'll cover all the points. I've made some notes, and then I'll elaborate on them. Now, all these things, they'll pretty much apply to how many, no matter how many chickens you have, whether it's a pair of chickens or a dozen chickens. Or even more, but it'll all apply to everybody. Now, the first point, buy grain from wholesaler different places where you can buy grain. But the essential, the primary food for the chickens will be grain, and you can buy these in 20 or 25 kilo bags, all the way down to 1 kilo bags depending on where you buy them. Now, what I used to do was primarily buy them from a big business who basically did food for every kind of animal, ranging from horses to goats to donkeys to pigs, sheep, chickens, dogs, everything. You could buy everything from straw to bedding to to food and housing and everything. Anyway, I used to go there, and this is a few years ago, but it used to approximately cost about £8 or £9 for a 20-25 kilo bag. And of course, depending on how many chickens you got, that depends on how long it'll last. But you can buy from there for fairly cheap, or you can go to market stalls. You can buy them in, you can either buy the 20-25 kilo bags there, although they do cost more, or you can, they even do them in 1 kilo bags. Not the most economical way, but if you've got 2 chickens, that is a good way of doing it. You can just buy 1 kilo at a time, or a couple of kilo bags. Unless, of course, you know somebody else, or at least 1 or 2 people who have chickens, and then you can buy the 20 kilo bags and go in between you and just split it up. Okay, or you can go to pet shops or even eBay. eBay is really not the best place, but if you're desperate, then there's because of course you pay by postage, and if you're buying kilos of grain, that can turn out to be a whopping bit of postage. But like I say, it's an option for you. Now, let's see. The next point: subsidised food with now with the grain, you buy the 20+ kilos of grain, or even the smaller bags. You've got grains of different types: wheat, barley, corn, maize. Basically they throw a big mix in there, and then the chickens have got a good variety, and that's good. That's pretty good. They can do that, but I personally wasn't content with that. Although that is a perfectly good. They will survive on that and whatever else they can get out of the garden. But I used to subsidise it with hemp seeds, rice. This is raw, uncooked rice. You can buy it dirt cheap from the supermarkets. You can buy them in 1 kilo bags. At the time, you could get them for about 30 to 50p a bag for a kilo. Very cheap, and they used to love it. After a while they'd eat it out your hand. I don't know whether they thought they were little bugs or little maggots, because they resemble, being the white. But they used to go crazy. They'd run a mile to get a handful of rice, raw uncooked rice. Now, and also I used to give them sunflower. Right, so that's hemp seeds, which are the seeds of the hemp plant. Raw rice and sunflower hearts. Now these sunflower seeds without the outer coating. I used to, and you can buy them without the coating, so they're called the hearts, just the insides. Throw all that in there. You got a mix of everything, and let them choose what they want. That's what I used to. The rule I used to go by. Give them everything, let them choose. Now, and also the other important point is you have to give them grit. You can buy grit in kilo bags. They're very cheap. £1 or £2 for a pound of grit. Now, what these are a mixture of different grits. They're little stones, little pebbles. They're not stones you find out on the street. They're special. What they do. They help with the digestion because chickens don't have teeth, so they swallow the stones. They have them in their gullet or gizzard, and the food goes in, and basically it grinds it all up, and then they're able to absorb it. And they dissolve as well after a time. So they need a constant supply of new grit. And also mixed in there are the shells of the oyster shells, and various other seashells. What they do, they get them, they pound them into very small pieces, and then throw them in. So you got a mix of everything. The oyster shells are good for the grinding of the food, but also they're good for egg production. They use the calcium in the shells to help produce new eggs. It gives them a boost, which is also good where we're giving them shells as well. Make sure if you're going to give them egg shells, make sure they're washed and dried, because if they get a taste of eggs, like if an egg cracks in the nesting area, or the chicken cracks it and eats what's inside, it is very difficult to persuade them not to keep doing it, because once they get a taste of that egg, it's like crack, they'll just keep on going for it, and it'll be as hard as hell to break them from that habit. So make sure there's no egg in the shell. Make sure it's washed out and dried, and then pound it in, crush it up into small pieces, and basically you can put it in a separate bowl to their grit, but as long as they have access to it. Like I say, if they don't want it, they won't eat it, and if they do, it's there for them. Don't hide it in with the grit. You can put it in a separate bowl. That's fine, and it all helps, because it takes a lot of energy for a chicken to produce an egg, and if you can give them the grit and the oyster shells and the egg shells, it just helps them regenerate. Okay, and also to subsidise their meals, I used to give them sweet corn out of a can. I can't remember, because some vegetables they have water in the cans. And let's see, I'm just checking the time. Canned vegetables have water in them, and some of them have salt water in them. And I can't remember if sweet corn had salt water, but either way, no matter what I did, if it came out of a can, it wasn't very much. The only thing I gave them from a can was the occasional can of peas, which sometimes they'd eat, sometimes they wouldn't. And sweet corn, and they really would go crazy over sweet corn. Now, dried corn will be in a mixed bag of grain if it's in there. Sometimes they just have grain, sometimes you'll have mixed grain, and there'll be dried sweet corn in there. Basically, and it's been chopped into little pieces and been pulverized, or into small bits. But sweet corn out of a can, they would go mad for it. So what I used to do was open. You can buy them for 30p. Basic shop brand. You get a big tin for 30p. Aldi's, Lidl's, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrisons, they all do them. The shop basics brand. Open the can. Put the can under the tap. Wash. Get some water in there. Empty it out. Put it under the tap. Swish it around. Empty it out. Make sure it's been washed. All the salt and all the additives has been washed away from the sweet corn, and then they will love it. They will. Don't put it in. Don't mix it in with their grain, for Christ's sakes, because the moisture and water from the sweet corn can will wet and moisten the seeds, and they'll start to mold. They'll start to mold and go rotten. You don't want any moisture in with your dry seeds. All right, so keep the sweet corn, your can of sweet corn, completely separate from the dried grain and food. Okay, so sweet corn, they go mad for that. That's like 30p a can. Dried mealworms. Now you can buy those. I saw some in the Poundland the other day when I got them burgers I've been reviewing. You can buy them from there for £1. You can buy them from Pound Stretcher, or most discount shops. Pet shops are probably more expensive, I would imagine. But you can buy 100. I think it's 100 grams. 100 grams is very light. You know, for £1. You know, and they will they will run a mile for them. I mean, no matter where they are in the garden. Once they see that the mealworms, they will run to you, let me tell you. And it's a good way if you want to get hold of them, if you want to inspect them. You see, and that goes back to my other point in the other video. The sweet corn and the mealworms, they will run a mile. You have them in your hand, and if they're comfortable with it, they'll eat out your hand, or they'll eat off the floor, depending if they're not. But use that to put down or eat out your hand, and use that as an incentive for them to run to you. And while you're doing that, you're giving them the visual inspection, like I spoke in the last video. You're looking at their eyes, you're looking at their beak, you're looking at their the crop on their head, you're looking at their state of their feet. Are they, you know, are they caked up with mud and dirt, and you know, and have a quick look at their feathers. Have they been pulling feathers out? Have they been attacked by other animals or each other? Have they been fighting? Basically, you're looking out for, you know, ailments and whatnot, and you know, and then you can do that while they're close. And the way to get them close is to sweet corn and or mealworms. That's very, you know. Now so there's another cheap. Now these are cheap foods. I'll go on to free foods in a moment. And also, actually, let's see, put bedding, scrap tea bags in a compost bin, encourage both. Yeah, if you have a garden, you're most likely got a compost bin, which most gardens do. If you don't, you can pick a huge one up. They sell for about 20 quid. You know, basically it's a big drum with a lid on the top. And then a cabinet at the bottom where you pull the door and you can reach the dirt. You can shovel it out from the bottom. Now, it's a good place to get rid of your messed up bedding. Now, there's another handy hint actually. What I used to use as bedding was, I used to buy these big bundles of straw from this farm down the road. And it used to be about 3 or 4 quid a bundle, but you know, which is a good price. But I figure, how can I make that go further? I don't want to spend £3-4 every month on something that's going to go, you know. So what I used to do was I got myself a newspaper shredder, a paper shredder, and I used to put newspapers in the shredder, and it used to shred them into, get the one that doesn't do it in like little tiny 3-inch pieces. They're the extra security ones. Get the ones that shred them into long 8-inch long shreds, you know, or a foot long shreds. It just shreds them into long pieces. That's better. You put that through the shredder, old newspapers, and you use that as a lining for each of the bedding areas, and then you put a little bit of straw on the top. So you have the straw, which costs you money, and then you have the newspaper that doesn't. And the newspaper acts as an insulator. Makes it soft bedding. It also acts as an insulator against any cold, you know, and it works out, it's cheaper than the straw, you know. So that's a handy hint where you can save money. Now, when they start to mess up the straw, it has to be changed every so often. So you can put that in the compost bin, which you know, with your scrap vegetables, uncooked vegetables. Grass cuttings, just dry them out for a short time. Don't put them in the compost wet. Make sure they're dry along with the veg uncooked, because otherwise, in either case, if the grass cuttings are wet and the vegetables are cooked, you'll encourage mold and you don't want that. What you want decay, but you don't want mold. You can also put tea bags in the compost bin, or you can just throw them in the garden. But if you work in a place with a canteen, you can always ask them for the tea bags. You know, bring your own Tupperware box, put a little sign on it, ask for scrap tea bags to be put, used tea bags to be put in there, and to, you know, for your compost. And unless they're real arses, then they'll let you do it, you know, in your compost bin. And what this does, this will do several things. This will feed the worms that are that will come up from underneath the ground into the compost bin. And they in turn will eat the grass, they will eat the straw, they'll eat the tea bags, and the veg and everything else you put in there. They will eat that and they'll turn it into dirt, which comes to a point in a moment when when you come to I'll come to that point, but when you come to pot your own plants. Now also, right, so what they'll do, they'll eat all that stuff. I mean, you need to get rid of the soiled up hay and straw for the bedding. It's a good place to get rid of it. So the worms will eat it, they'll turn it into dirt. You can use that dirt to replant in your pots, which I'll explain in a moment. And also it encourages bugs, you know, the good bugs, because bugs it's like, if you ever lift up the lid and look into a compost bin, it's like a little ecosystem in there. There's worms, there's spiders, there's beetles, there's bugs, there's flies. You know, they're all feeding on the vegetable matter, and they're all feeding on each other, you know. So so whenever the compost bin gets full and you lift up the compost bin to spread the dirt around the garden, the chickens will dive on this and they'll be getting free bugs. All right, so that's another way of giving them free food. They'll eat as many bugs as they can, but also they'll leave the ones that they won't eat all of them because they don't like all the bugs. I think they don't eat ants, that's for certain. You don't want ants in there anyway. But anyway, they'll get a big dinner plate full of free bugs from the compost bin that you've spread about, and then you just reposition your compost bin and start all over again. And then the bugs will come back to feed on the, you know, and it's all free food again. Okay. Now the dirt I mentioned that you're making in the compost bin, where's that plant pot? They make dirt from a compost. Yeah, another way of making. So I'm looking at the bread. This is my bread. I'm making a loaf of bread here. I'm going to show you the results in another video. With the dirt that you get from the compost bin, what you can do, you can go onto eBay, go onto the market stalls, go into shops that sell seeds, basically anything green, okay? Grass seeds, cabbage, lettuce, kale, broccoli, cress, you know, anything green. And what you can do is you take your pot. Hopefully you'll get a bigger pot than this, you know. Oh, and also if you don't want to spend the money on pots because they're quite expensive, and you go to your local chicken shop, your kebab shop, your basically your independent burger shop, and say to them, you know, ask them to save you the 5 litre mayonnaise tubs. They buy mayonnaise in 5 litres. They may buy other stuff in 10s, and what they do, 9 times out of 10, they throw them in the rubbish bin, right? In the skipper, right? So ask them, and you know, and then make yourself known to them. Buy something from them, and you know, and odds on they'll let you have them for free, you know, because they're just glad to get rid of them because it takes up money in the bin which they have to pay for to get rid of. So imagine this is bigger, okay? What you do is you fill, I'm going to hold that up there, you fill the dirt that you've got from the compost. You can also buy it for a pound bag in Poundland, but say you fill it up to there, okay? Then you take your cheap seeds that you've got from various places, eBay, market stalls, or, you know, sometimes out of date seeds. They're all, you know, they still, you know, they're out of date, but they still, so most of them are still good. There's a fly flying around, bastard. You fill the dirt up to there. You know, what I used to do was open up 20 bags of mixed vegetables, seeds, put them in a bag, shuffle them up, shake them around, just go in there, grab a handful and just sprinkle them in there. So it's like a lucky dip. And then, all right, so you got your dirt there, sprinkle the seeds in, and then what you do is you put some wire mesh over the top. About, say, a centimetre square wire mesh. What you want, you don't want it too small where the plants can't grow through, but you don't want it too big. That's my loaf of bread done. You don't want it too small where the plants won't grow through, but you don't want it too big where the chicken will stick its head in. Right? What you want is in the middle, approximately, but you can buy them size, a centimetre square. Anyway, so dirt, seeds, wire mesh over the top, and just put some water on it and just leave it, right? And what will happen is, imagine if you've got a bunch of these all around the garden, all these 5 litre tubs you've been collecting from the kebab shops and that, and also any plant pot you find at a car boot, Anyway, so you've got your mesh over the top. The seeds will grow through, and they'll poke their way through the mesh. Okay? So, and what happens is the chicken comes along, and imagine there, it can only, there's the plant that's in there, it can only reach the part that is grown through the mesh. If you don't have the mesh, they will dive in, they will eat the plant down to the roots, and then they'll kick all the dirt around so nothing else will grow. That's what they do because they're stupid. So what you do, so you have the mesh on the top, everything that grows above the mesh, they will just nip and take, and then they'll bugger off somewhere else and eat from another plant pot, and this will have a chance to grow. The plant won't die because it's not been eaten down to the roots. It's only the tips of the plants, the tip, the leaves and the tips of the plants that's been eaten, so the plant stays alive, and it'll just keep on growing, and then after a while it will grow some more. It'll grow through the mesh. The chickens will come along. They'll just nip at the tops, and they'll go away again. And if you've got a dozen of these in your garden, there's plenty of plants that they'll just keep on regenerating. Okay, so I used to do that all the time. And but basically, you buy a bunch of seeds, and it's one of those. It's one of those food resources that just keeps on growing. Like I say, they will eat it. Like with the grass, you might get bare patches because they will eat the plant down to the root, and then they just kick up all the dirt. This way, it's an everlasting supply of greenery. Because the more you can grow in those pots for free, the less you have to buy. Don't forget, that bag of grain I talked about, that 20 kilo bag of grain, that is good, but you have to give them greenery. If you want good quality, wholesome, yellow yolked eggs, that comes from greenery. In the battery system, they give them marigold petals. They don't give them any greenery or anything goodness like that. They give them marigold petals to make the yolk try to make the yolk golden. In free range, they get it from greenery. Grass, cabbage, lettuce, kale, Brussels, cress, all those things I mentioned. All green leafed plants, which is what you can grow in those plants. And it's everlasting, okay? Wire mesh on the top, that's that. Get free veg from market store. Yeah. You can. Another way of getting free veg is if you ever go to the market stall, like if you've got a big market where you live, or say your market stall. What they do is they've got all the nice veg all on the tabletops for you to see. But what they do, they all look good, and the reason why they look good is because what they do when they come across a cabbage or a big lettuce or they take the outer manky ones that have been exposed to the air and been bruised, and they take them off, throw them in the bin, and they display a nice fresh looking, good looking cabbage. Now it's those leaves that they put into the bin is what you want. You go to them. Now return the favour, like I used to do, was, you know, if they ask them if you can take the cabbage and basically all the greenery from their waste bin, right? They'll be more than likely to, you know, they'll let you have it because they don't want it. They got to pay to get rid of it, you know, get rid of it somehow. It saves them a pain by you taking it. So you can take as much as you want and just return the favour by going in and buying some bananas from them, you know. Buying some apples or something, you know, just as a thank you to them, and then and if they know you're gonna, you know, if you're gonna spend £1 or £2 with them, you know, they'll let you have the greenery for free. I mean, they don't, you know, they're not going to do anything with it. So that's a good way. And it's like where I'm at, as I've mentioned, I'm from Milton Keynes. We've got a Milton Keynes market. There's 3 fruit and veg stalls. So if you've got a bunch of chicken, you can hit one of them 1 week. Hit the other one the next, the third one the week after, and that way you don't, you know, just do the circuit, or even just go to the same one every time. Yeah, you know, buy some oranges, and they'll let you have it. You'll have a whole mixture. When you go through the bin, you had the freshest stuff on the top, okay, but make sure you don't start getting any mouldy veg. Just leave that there. If it's going mouldy and shitty, just leave it there. Just get the fresh leaves. And then what you do, you take it home, you feed it to the chickens, you just throw it in a big, you'd have to spread it around, don't bother spreading it around, the chickens will kick it around. Leave it in a big heap, the chickens will eat what they want, the rest of it they don't want, it will either just leave it to rot into the ground, and the worms will have it, and it'll turn into dirt, which will fertilise your garden, or your patch, or whatever, you know, your chicken area, or if once they figure out they're not going to eat it, and it starts to go a bit manky, shovel it up and throw it in the compost bin. The worms will eat it, and then the bugs will eat it, and then they'll turn that into dirt, which you can use to replant these everlasting plant pots. So it's all good. You can do that at market stalls or carveries. They have you know, they have plenty of fruit and veg. You know, when they got cabbage and they cut the ends off. Go to restaurants, burger shops. If they've got any lettuce, cabbage, tomatoes. Don't get onions. You know, more than likely, if they're not going to seal them up and use them the next day, they'll most likely let you have them. And then the chickens will eat what they want. Yeah, like I said, and the excess put in the compost bin. Okay, yeah, that's you know, so you get to feed your chickens and you get to feed the compost bin. It's all good. Oh, and if you live, another trick that I know this is getting to be a long. Wow, 27.5 minutes. This will be the last, you know, most likely the last video unless people got questions, but there's only 3 more points. If you live near a scrap metal merchant, now here's a good one. If you want absolutely free, what I used to do was I used to go around, I had a stick and I had a red recycling bag, and I used to go around the streets, around my estate, my housing estate, and the next door housing estate, and I've got one of those litter pickers. It's a stick with a, you know, your pincer on the end. You know, it's about 4 foot long. You know. Anyway, and you can pick up stuff off the floor without bending over. What I used to do was to go around my housing estate and the next door, picking up aluminium cans off the floor, and I used to pick them up, put them in the bag. And I used to save them up, and when I've got a bunch of bags, I used to load them in the car, take them down to the scrap metal merchants. These are people who buy scrap cars and they scrap them, or you know, you might have seen metal merchants where they've got those huge bins full of, you know, metal washing machines, all kinds of scrap metal plus cars. They will actually give you money. You know, they'll give you money for old washing machines, they'll give you money for old lawnmowers, well, provided it's not, you know, as long as it's not mixed metal, fridges, your old cars, but they'll also give you money for aluminium. Probably a good idea to ring them first, because 1 or 2 don't. They're a bit of a pain. You know, they don't. They all take aluminium and they'll all give you money, but some of them will be in a pain. They don't want the aluminium because they're not worth a whole hell of a lot. What they are is, it's worth approximately 50p a kilo. Now, if you're familiar with the recycling bags, or even a black rubbish bag, if you fill that, it's the same size, if you fill that with crushed aluminium cans, I've counted once, and you get 200 in there, which is 200, which will give you it will give you approximately a pound 20, somewhere around that. Okay, I mean, it may sound like a lot, 200, but I mean, basically it's an hour and a half. What it is, you take the dog out, take the kids out with you, you can walk around, get some exercise, get some fresh air for an hour and a half, a couple of hours, and, each bag is worth approximately a pound, a fraction over. So, what I used to do was to collect 8 bags, and there was my 20 kilos of grain, and by the time the chickens ate those 20 kilograms of grain, I've already collected 4, 5, 6, 7 bags already. So sometimes I needed only to put a pound in to make up the £8 to buy a bag of grain. Sometimes I collect enough cans to do it. That's just one way. If you want to do it for absolutely free, just collect cans. Make sure they're aluminium. Pepsi made of steel, they're no good. Leave those on the floor. Let the council pick them up. What you can do is go around with a magnet. If it is steel, it will stick to a magnet. You don't want those. If it's aluminium, they don't stick to a magnet. They're good. They're the good ones. Anyway, so in summertime, if you want more free food, what you can do in summertime, when all the caterpillars and that are running around all the bushes, stinging nettles are a good place to go, because what you do, you go up with a say a 2 litre Coke bottle, 2 litre drinks bottle, cut the end off, and you have a little twig. You go up there and you just scrape them off the branch. They come off, they just push them off the branch into the bottle. And odds on, some chickens will, some chickens won't, depending on how fussy they are. But if you go around and collect, say 3 or 4 caterpillars per chicken. Okay, so you got 3, if you got 6 chickens, get 20, 24 caterpillars, take them home, put them put them down on the ground, let the chickens run over, let them eat them, and just watch them. Watch the chickens eat them. Now, the chickens will run up for curiosity. They'll pick them up, they'll attempt to eat them. If they don't want them, they will pick them up, try them, and then they'll put them down, they'll go away. Then they won't come, they won't eat them. If they do eat them, they'll just have the lot. They'll just go crazy. And that's what you want. First, you want to know what type of caterpillar the chickens will eat, and also if your chickens want to eat the caterpillars. It's funny, chickens, because they're like people. You could have 10 chickens. I've had some that liked peas from a can. Some of them don't. I've had some that will eat cabbage. Some of them won't. It's crazy, they're like people. They just eat different things. So you get about 3 or 4 caterpillars per chicken. Put them down, let them eat them, see how many of the chickens eat them, if they're a favourite. If they are, go out and get as many as you can. Fill up the bottle. I'll fill it up, but you get a few dozen, put them down, put them in the garden, let them eat them, all right? And it's free food. They love bugs and beetles and worms and all these kinds of things. Remember, if the more free food in the way of bugs and free food from the everlasting plant pot I told you about, the more food that they eat from that's free, the longer the grain will last. And the grain is what costs you money, so it makes your pound go even further, which is a good thing. And the last point, wood ash to feed plants in pots. Yeah, if you have a barbecue or some kind of small fire, a barbecue thing, burn wood, not pallets, not fencing, not furniture. These have preservatives, these have varnish, these have paints on them which will poison the ash. Go out, get some twigs, get some branches, get some acorns, get some, what they call them, acorn, but twigs and branches. Make sure they're dry, don't burn wet ones. Burn them. Now, it takes a lot of wood to make a little bit of ash. It's not like, it's amazing how little ash you get from a pile of wood. But if you collect a bunch of wood up, when you're walking the dog, just fill a bag up. Every time you go out with a dog, take a bag with you. Pick up a few twigs, put them in the bag, bring them home, and then once in a while burn them and use the ash. You can either throw it in the garden and it'll fertilize. It's like dynamite, let me tell you. It'll fertilize the plants and grasses that the chickens need to eat in the garden. Put a little bit in the plant pots of the everlasting plants that I explained about. Put some of it in the compost bin. The worms will love that. They'll turn that into goodness. And yeah, it's like natural fertilizer. Make sure it isn't from any kind of wood that's been preserved or painted. You just want natural wood from trees. And also, I forgot to mention, if when you have your plant pot, when you have your pot, okay. What I used to do, imagine this is a 5 litre one. I used to put a little bit of dirt in there. Then I used to put some wood ash, an apple core, banana peel, bit of lettuce, bit of old manky cabbage leaves. Throw all that in there. Don't put any citrus, no orange, no lemon, no pineapple. Okay, you put a bit of lettuce in there. Basically, put a few tea bags in there, and also I used to put a couple of worms in there as well that I dug out from the garden. Put them in there. In fact, don't put them in there yet. Fill it up. Put all that vegetable matter in there. Fill it up with the dirt. Then put the worms on top, and they will burrow down. Don't bury them in there. They'll put them on the top. They'll bury it. They'll bury themselves. Put the wire on the top, and then put all the seeds. Now the seeds will draw nutrients from the tea bag, from the lettuce, from the wood ash and the apple core and the orange, the banana peel. They'll draw nutrients from that, and I tell you, they go crazy. Them plants, they really do well when they have all those things in the dirt with it as a kickstart. Okay, and that's a good way to get the plants. Give them a kickstart of energy. They will burst into life. They'll grow through the grill, and then the chickens will nip the plants at the top. And yeah, providing you've got the grill, they can't kill the plant. They'll only nip the top inch of the plant. The plant will stay alive, and it'll stay around for not forever, but it'll last a long time. So your pound for the seeds will go a long way. You know, and it's all about free and cheap foods. That's the thing. With a bit of ingenuity. I mean, all these things I actually dreamt up, and I used to incorporate with my chickens. You know, because I figure I'm paying a certain amount per grain, but how can I make that grain last longer? And the way to do it is to grow your own. You know, basically anything green, and also, you know, from work, if you work in a canteen, aside from tea bags, if they do food, they might let you have their scrap lettuce. You know, make sure it doesn't have salt and vinegar and Thousand Island dressing on it and all that stuff in it. Make sure it's, you know, good clean cabbage scraps, tomato. Don't give them onion. Don't give them give them cabbage and lettuce, but don't give them red cabbage. I found this. It won't hurt them, but I went to the kebab van. I did a little story. When I went to the kebab van once, I used to get some lettuce from them. You know, all their scrap lettuce, and I used to give it to them, and everything was good until one day. See, I have red cabbage on my kebabs if I ever eat a kebab, and I had that mixed in with the regular cabbage. And what happens is I fed it to them. The next day, I come back, and they've been crapping purple. Or, you know, in the yard, and I was shitting myself. I thought, of course, I thought I'd poisoned them, right? But it turns out it was the colouring in the red cabbage that had gone through their system, and they were crapping purple, which scared me at first. But you know, it won't do them any harm. But it's just, you know, just give them regular cabbage. Anyway, that was my last point. So, if you have chickens, or you know anybody who has chickens, and you think that was like really useful, because everybody, you know, I mean, a lot of people keep chickens. I've known people who keep chickens, but they can't be bothered with any of this stuff. It's like you just buy the grain, throw the grain at them, and just leave them to it. But me, I actually cared about my birds, and I wanted to give them the best life possible. I've never had battery, but I figure if I did, then you know, I'd like to give them the best life possible. They'd have a rough life, and also, you know, I mean, basically, I mean, they're not. I mean, they were kind of pets. I mean, they're good to have around, but these are animals that the way I looked at it, these animals depend on me. Okay, they will never, except when occasionally when I used to take them to somebody else's garden, they will never leave that. I underestimated the length of the garden. It's about 30 feet long by about 12 to 15 wide. That is their home. That is their world. Okay, so everything they need to get from that square garden. So they depend on me to basically give them the best food and the best life and keep them safe as I possibly can. And I used to enjoy employing all these things because it was like a little hobby, you know. How can I, right, I've got something there, how can I save? I don't want to buy that. How can I make it for free? How can I grow it for free? You know, somebody else's rubbish from a restaurant is food for my chickens, you know, and it saves me £1 buying it, and saves them £1 to get rid of it. Anyway, I'm waffling on. So yeah, you know, I hope you like this video. Give me a thumbs up, please, if you like it, and also pass it on to anybody that has chickens or thinking about getting chickens. Put, you know, forward them my part 1, my part 2, and this one, part 3. I'm sure they'll find it useful if they actually want to go the extra mile to give their chickens a good life. They'll pay attention to what I've been doing on my 3 vids. You know, some people don't. You know, some people figure, well, you know, just throw them in the gut. You know, but I actually care about it. And if you know somebody who actually gives a crap about them as well, just you know, these are very good ideas that will give your bird a good life. Anyway, and in return, they are very good company, and you know, each one does have its personality, a bit like in the way the dogs do, and they're very good company. You know. Anyway, thank you for putting up with this coming up to 42 minutes. And anyway, yeah, please forward it on Twitter, Facebook, all the rest of it, and tell your pals that this is something interesting. All right. Anyway, thank you for sticking with me, and if you stayed to the end, I thank you. All right. Bye bye.